So now I have the honor to introduce Kevin Mitchell. Kevin's the Sector Vice President of Global Operations at Northrop Grumman Aerospace Systems and leads a diverse team of over 6,000 employees who are responsible for the fabrication, assembly, and delivery of the world's most capable and technologically advanced aerospace systems. He has over 31 years of experience managing large-scale aerospace operation and has held numerous leadership positions throughout his career, ranging from site leadership to functional leadership. He is included as the Vice President of Global Supply Chain at the Aero Systems. Kevin has several advanced degrees, including a Master's of Science in Global Supply Chain Management from the University of Southern California, a Master's in Science and Business Administration, and multiple executive certificates, including a Certificate of Global Supply Chain Management Strategies, and one of the aerospace manufacturing. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kevin Mitchell to the stage.
All right, good job. Thank you, my friend. Okay. Okay, good morning again. First, I'd like to thank all of you for giving me an opportunity to speak here today. The subject that we're talking about today is really dear to my heart, and I came to a conclusion in my career. There's a couple things that I need to really resonate with. Number one is I'm a competitor, and I look out in the audience and I see that there's a number of my competitors, my suppliers, my customers, competitive mates, depending on what program we're competing in. But there's a couple things I refuse to compete with. Number one, foe on aircraft. If I have a technology or capability to help eliminate foe, I'll give that to any of my competitors because I want to protect the product because my customers is the most value asset that we have. Then the second thing I don't like to compete with is when I look at any type of safety of people or product. Anything I can do to help my industry friends to be more successful with safety, I don't want to compete in that area. I want to share my capabilities, and I also want to collaborate with you on yours. And the third thing, I don't want to negotiate. One thing I don't want to compete in is challenges. Because the challenges that we see and the things that we have, we all realize these challenges, and the challenges only impact one major person, and that's our customer. And our customers in the business that I'm in is normally taxpayers. So when I look at that, I say, why do we negotiate in that space? How do we share our best practices so we can learn from each other, so we can ensure that we're doing what's right for our customers, so we can continue to have a successful industry? So as I walk through my presentation today, I'll give you one man's perspective on how I look at the industry and some of the challenges that I see and some of the remedies we have for some of those problems, but I assure you I don't have it all solved. And I'm sure that you have some of the same challenges, and when I go through the slides, you'll resonate with some of the issues that we have, that you have as well. So when you look and want to talk a little bit about Northrop Grumman to really start this presentation, what I love about our company is when you really boil everything down, we have two major objectives, which is in our vision. Number one, we build products that has the accountability, the responsibility, and it's done very well, is build products that preserve each and every one of your freedoms. And when you say freedoms, it's everyone in the United States, our citizens and people who are guests. And then also, we preserve the freedom of our allies. So when you look at our capabilities, it helps endure those opportunities. The second that we do is we build products that help us advance human discovery. So if you just stop there and say, well, what is this guy talking about, human discovery? Because we're building one of the most capable inventions, not innovation, called the James Webb Telescope, that I can look backwards 13.7 billion years in time and be able to answer two questions that men have been asking forever. Is there any other planet like Earth, or is there any other life form? That's the type of capability that we build. So when I look at that opportunity at Northrop Grumman, that what we do is very inspiring. And as Mr. Decker said earlier, I love the company I work for because our mission is very important and our objectives are very clear. So in how we organize to enable those objectives is really in four major sectors. And I'll walk you through just very quickly on those sectors and what capability each one of those sectors bring to our corporation. First, the aerospace systems sector, which is the sector that I work in. it is responsible for platforms. So the best way to describe it, we build platforms to truck capability to allow us to have the presence in domestic and abroad with things such as B-2 bombers, B-21, F-35, F-18, surveillance aircrafts with our autonomous systems, which are unmanned, surveillance aircraft that are manned. So when you look at that array and the space products that we build, like James Webb and other telescopes and satellites, that's the capability and the platforms that we get out of our aerospace systems sector. When you look at innovation systems sector, it's one we just bought into our company last year, and it's a great sector that had synergies and opportunity primarily in the space business that complemented what we have at Northrop Grumman. So now the two sectors together, corporations together, make a very powerful corporation. And they bring a lot of the rocket, the boosters, the flight systems, and other aerospace products as well. So it gave us a very, very significant complement to our already great portfolio. The third, mission systems, I like to identify them, is the stuff that goes on platforms, regardless if it's us or another OEM. So when you look at our vehicle management systems, our radar, our cybersecurity, any type of mission controls that we need, IS Force. So when you look at the capability there, we have great capability coming out of our mission systems sector. And then last but not least is our technology sector. That capability that we have there is the capability to do our sustainment work. And that sustainment work is important across multiple different types of platforms, regardless who the OEM is, and then modernization. So that represents our great corporation. Now I'm going to pare it down to AS sector where I work. When you look at our corporations, to give you a better perspective, around 85,000 people all over the globe, many domestic, but then also across the water. We have great capabilities almost in every state. And what I'm going to share you with the aerospace systems sector, we are organized in really 4 primary center of excellence. And when you look at the primary ones, you have, and you see here, oops, pushed the wrong button. Palmdale, which is the one that I reside in, and that's where we build all the platforms I talked about earlier. So when you look at the bombers, when you look at different types of autonomous systems, you look at the capability we have there, just a very great place to build aircraft. And that's where we have what we call our Aircraft Integration Center of Excellence. You go to the far right, our second Aircraft Integration Center of Excellence, that's called St. Augustine, Florida. And there we build things like the E-2D Hawkeye. And we also have some sustainment work on our F-5 aircrafts. On the left-hand side on the bottom, which is our El Segundo, that's a site, and right next to it is San Diego, and where we have our Autonomous Systems Design Center. All the way to the far right, we have our Melbourne facility, which is our Manned Aircraft Design Center, which is in Melbourne, Florida. And then right here, we call Space Park, that is a COE, which is a hybrid. We have our space manufacturing integration, and then we also have our space design center. So and all the other sites that support those different programs and products, they come in to support one of those different design centers or aircraft integration center. And then when you look at, now I'm trying to get a little bit more focused on the challenges that we see to support all the products that we have domestically and abroad. I go to the executive order that came out, I think it was 2018, by President Trump, and they wanted to focus on a couple issues, and the issues were around the areas of issues across the supply base and also the A&D organizations. And when you look, it's 2 areas I'm going to focus on today. One is the declining work that's in manufacturing across the United States, and our capabilities and our capacity, which we're starting to see a significant strain. And then also the diminishing issues with our STEM students. And just a statistic that I just heard around a couple months ago, that all the graduates in the United States, only 20% of them will be U.S. citizens. And for the work that I do, I have to have all U.S. citizens because I work for the Department of Defense. So when you look at that, that means when we go out to compete for students that have to have a security clearance, that means they have to be able to obtain a security clearance. And when you look at some of the challenges that we have today, I use California as an example. I talked to the governor about this. Marijuana is legal. Well, when you look at what's happening in today's in our defense business, federal law says it trumps state law. So therefore, you work for my company, you can't use marijuana. So now look at all those college graduates all over the country that come into California that I can't hire because they don't have the right requirements, they don't meet them to be in our industry. So that's a big problem that I see to make sure they can obtain clearances. When I look at my workforce, a significant part of my workforce are in cleared programs. So that is a great challenge that we see. So when you look at STEM, and you look at we have to have all Americans, United States citizens, and when you look at that challenge, and then we put the added pressures of some of the decisions that some of the people make, it creates more pressure on us to be able to be competitive to get those resources. So when you start looking at other challenges we see, and it's really interesting when you start to look at the footprint. Our footprint at one time was really primarily domestic, but now you look at our footprint, it goes across the globe. Not only domestically in the United States, but when you look at all different countries, and today they may be an ally, and tomorrow they may not be. So when you look at your risk proposition changes every day, and I won't mention certain countries, but we have challenges just recently within the news that we had to make some decisions, the countries making decisions, are we going to continue to be allies with them? So when that happens, it creates a significant strain on our ability to produce those products that we had collaborations with other countries. And when you look at the visibility, and this is one that I think we all resonate with, as a prime, when we look at our suppliers, we really want to understand the suppliers and make sure they have the capability to execute on all the programs that we have and all the requirements, meeting all the FARs and the DFAR requirements, cyber requirements, counterfeit materials. But what we're seeing is going down a tier or two, the visibility start to get very, very thin. And you don't have the visibility into your lower tiers that you would have at the first tier supplier that you have. So it creates a risk on what are they putting in my product? Do they have the right traceability of the materials that they're using? Do they know where that transistor came from? Did it come from somewhere that is authorized for our products in the United States? So when we look at that, that has been a very significant problem throughout the supply chain to be able to manage that. So there's areas that we need to really focus on, and that is a great issue. Cybersecurity. I talked to a couple people in the recent past about cybersecurity issues. For some reason, we all think that cybersecurity is really about the data you have that go between your suppliers and your manufacturing, and what goes into your data that you transmit throughout your corporation. But I start to worry about things in the middle of the night. What if someone break and hack into my automation on my factory floor? How is that protected? So I have a significant effort going across all my facilities looking at how do I protect every asset of every automation that I use, the Internet of Things, to make sure someone can tamper that and destroy the products that I'm building. So when you look at cybersecurity, it goes far beyond just what we look at transferring data, your social security number, all those things are very important. But it goes a lot further than that, and we have to manage that statement of work and make sure that our suppliers are doing due diligence to their requirements to manage our data as well. And then when you start looking at the volume stuff going to industry, I'll show you a chart here in a few slides. The growth is just tremendous. When you look at the aerospace and you look at the defense, you look at commercial versus military, you look at the automotive industry, the industry challenges, sometimes we can get stovepipe and think it's really only addressing what you do. It's interesting when you start talking about what is an industry, and we look at aerospace and defense, that's an industry. Well, I look at the industry is really manufacturing. When you look across the board in manufacturing, who uses my material? I give you an example, is that I don't buy any foreign materials for the building our products. We buy all of our materials mostly domestically. But however, if Boeing, who's building commercial aircraft, they buy their material foreign and then there's a tariff, and then they no longer can buy that material foreign because it's not at a discounted price. Now they're putting pressure on the people who are building those materials that I get in the United States. So now, even though if I can be blind to it, say it's not my business, it becomes my business. Now there's a risk in my risk register. How do I mitigate now? Now I got to pay more for my materials, and I got to get in line on a longer line to be able to get those materials. So those things become very challenging in our environment. So you have to have a very good risk process to really manage all the different interdependencies and things inside and outside of your environmental controls. And then the capitalization. As you know, that to be competitive in today's environment, we have to capitalize a lot more today than we've ever done in the past. And our customers have a higher expectations, higher MRL level on different products that we're delivering to them. With that being said, you're investing a lot of money for something you don't know if you're going to win. So when you look at that challenge, it creates a very significant risk to your stockholders, looking at how you're investing, and also your resources you have within your corporation. So you have to really be very mindful and make sure you're chasing at the right products that you feel that you have a high, what we call a P-win to be able to achieve. So those types of challenges that you see in the supply base and many others are creating a number of challenges to us and our supply base. And I look at when you're a company of 85,000 people, and you look at the other OEMs that are very large corporations, we absorb a lot of that impact. But as you go down to our supply chain, we realize that it's not as easy for them at times to absorb some of the things that we can absorb. And it's really difficult. So we recognize that as a major challenge to be able to deliver to our commitments. But one thing with all that being said, which is always important to Northrop Grumman, is that we always stand on the foundation of our values. We negotiate in good faith. We don't do anything to our suppliers we wouldn't expect of ourselves. We make sure that we give fair representation of what we can do to our customers. And we back out of competition that we feel that we can't bring value to our customers. And we've demonstrated that over the years a number of times after spending multi-million dollars of investment. We sit there and say, as we look at the deal that you're offering, it's not a deal that we feel that we can add you the best value or cannot deliver to your expectations, so we're backing out. And when we made those decisions, they've been very, very difficult decisions. But I would tell you, we keep track of all the decisions we backed out of and see some of our competitors, and then we see the news flash, $1 billion over cost. And we said, that would have been us. So it makes the decision a lot more gratifying when you make those decisions to back out. When you see the others decide to stay in, and you say, good decision, and we became a valued and trusted partner to our customer, because they know we do what we say and we say what we do. And if any of you fall in the category that did not, I'm not trying to throw, no shade on you or anything like that, but I'm just saying. So then, I love one of my competitors, my previous employer, and good friend and colleagues that work together at Boeing. Boeing's a great company, deliver great products. When I look at this profile, sometimes it really pisses me off. Because I see them going from in the 1400s all the way up to, you can see, or today, around 1,400 people, 1,400 up to around 2,200. So I look at what machine shops are they going to take over? What materials are they going to pull in? What automation they're going to be in line for? What capabilities are they going to bring to bear to be able to execute this? And how much risk did this put on me and the things that we do? So we had to figure this problem out, because it becomes not just a Northrop Grumman, Lockheed, Boeing, or General Dynamics problem. It becomes an industry problem that we and our customers need to solve this problem, because we need to deliver the products that our customers and our country desire and needs for our security and then for our transportation. So it's an area, when I look at data like this, it makes me ponder and makes me wonder and makes us strategize, how do we mitigate this risk? And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. So a couple things when I look at risk mitigation, and first thing and foremost, which is at times, sometimes it seems harder than others, is really how do you set your suppliers up for success? And this is probably rule number one. We can always beat up a supplier for not delivering on time, but if you really do your root cause and corrective action, say, did I give them a PO on time? Did I try to really shrink their lead time more so that they could adjust to? Did I give them the right requirements? So when I look at making sure I set my suppliers up for success, that is important that we start off with that end state in mind. And then I try to really focus on what suppliers do I really want to partner with. And there's some suppliers that we want to partner closer with because we want to look across our portfolio and look at what are multiple opportunities that I can have, a supplier that's a strategic partner with me that I can call them first because I want them to be competitive on all the programs that I have. And we have a number of those strategic relationships that prove to be very valuable to us. And we know what they're bringing to the market. We know what capabilities they're bringing. And they're investing like we're investing to be able to bring down our recurring costs to our customers. And that's an important part of our partnership, and having those industry days, aligning our products that we're going to go forward with their technology roadmap to make sure we're crossing the right axis together. And then one that we used to use years ago is called the stick. How do you get someone to do what you want to? You beat them to death. You just tell them, get it, I want it on time, you didn't deliver me what I want to, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Well, that works only for a little while, and we learned that with all types of behaviors in humans as well as supply chain and whatever business you're in. Where's the gratification part? Where's the incentives and rewards that you want to give to those same people that you want to hold accountable? You need to have both sides of that equation to be able to hold each other accountable. So we focus on how do you first identify what do I need to invest to reduce the risk, and then make sure that we can deliver the products on time. And then secondly, how do I reward those good positive performance and incentivize that performance? So we want to focus in those areas to reduce some of the risk mitigation. And as we talk about digital threads, and I tell you, this is probably a lot harder than it first started. When you start looking at digital thread, it sounded good, digital thread, digital twin, everybody's using the buzzword. And then when you really start to pull back the fabric, are we really doing it all the way? From your design concept, all the way to your fabrication, to what you build in your facilities, at your supply chain, all the way to your small business. Do you really have a digital thread that goes all the way through that you can build this virtual iron bird that you can see and be able to manipulate that product in its state of digital state to understand what it can do and what it can't do and what modifications you need to make before you cut one chip of metal? If you have that capability, that's great. And then how do you track it and use data analytics to understand how it's performing? What are the variabilities? What is the different types of tolerances that you're using and which ones that you are not doing so well on? So when you really have a true digital thread, it's a tremendous opportunity and growth. But I notice a lot of people use the buzzword. I'm digital thread. You look at it, no, you are thinking about it, but you're not there yet. And it's a lot of work to do to get all your different suppliers lined up. But once you do that, there's another part of the digital thread that we have to start thinking about. How does that also compromise your cybersecurity? So now it creates another risk, and how you're addressing that with your digital thread. Because if you tamper into that, how does it go from all the way through your whole manufacturing, your supply base, and everywhere else you have certain types of suppliers and customers? Now you got a bigger problem. So when you start thinking about digital thread, it's a bigger discussion and it's a larger risk mitigation strategy. And then when you look at our advanced manufacturing capabilities, and I tell you, what I love about manufacturing is that as much as my engineering friends I love and want to work side by side with them, one thing that we need to also think about is how do I make sure they're building things they're designing things that I can build, and I can do it and be very producible at what I build. So when you look at our advanced manufacturing capabilities, we want to be on the front end of the design, not on the back end. So we can ensure that we can encourage those engineers to make the right design decisions that's going to give us long-lasting affordability and survivability of our products. And when you look at the pictures there, what I love about the picture, you're looking at the digital threads, and then you look at the robot that helps you be able to drill and be able to build your products. But when you look at the augmented reality glasses, that you're able to see your work instructions, when you're looking at an additive manufacturing cube satellite in your hand, and be able to understand, whoever put those glasses on, what we need to do to execute that statement of work. This is where you're really starting to leverage the capability of a real true manufacturing of today's environment. Now, this is one of my favorite charts, and this is a favorite chart because it really starts to change the way that we look at products. So no matter how hard I work to build the way someone designed 15, 20 years ago, I need to change the way the engineers design to be able to give my customer what they need and what they deserve at the price point they want. So when I look at the cost, when you look at it in the design phase, you're locked into your cost, around 85% locked in. So you get a small amount of your cost that you can be able to manipulate when you're in your design phase, where I'm at over here, in your design phase, because you're already locked in. So when I really start looking about what do I want to do if I got a real true design to cost approach. So I'll share with you some of the things that we looked at. When you look at a holistic curve, and you start with a legacy product, you're way up on the T1 curve, and you're coming down this curve, and sometimes it's we call it a learning curve. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just an adjustment to your curve. But when you look at that curve and that you have, you notice that how steep it is, and then all that recovery. Well, if you change your concept of how you design, and you design using you're using a virtual environment, and you look at how you design your products, going away from some of the traditional builds, and I'll show you some examples. If you change your design concepts, and you start to look at, if I design here and change my T1 slope, all the stuff in the blue becomes my savings and opportunity. and because I'm changing the way I build and the way I design first and then what I build. And if I change that, I can give the customer a better cost proposition, a value proposition, and I can save a lot of money. But there's one catch. You have to train your customers how to look at your data differently. So if you do all these great things, redesign your aircraft, come up with a different carrier profile, and they're accustomed to seeing this, but you start here, they want to see this same slope. They think that all this opportunity, well, my slope is going to be flatter because I'm taking all that realization and all that extra cost out of the front end of the process completely out. So it's on the back end. So I have to train them, don't expect what you used to expect. I'm giving you your savings right now and up front. And that's a whole significant effort to really educate your customers that you have a different way of doing business. So when I look at that challenge, that's probably a bigger challenge convincing your customers. They have to really look at you a little bit differently. And that's one that we've really been spending a lot of time on. How do you have them look at that? Because what's the benefit? Where it would take us 100 units to come down a learning curve, now we can do it in around 10 units. And when you're building an F-35 at 1 every 36 hours, you want to be able to get that benefit as soon as possible. And we talk about the major design. What about when you do a change? Whenever you do those changes, you want to follow the same type of concept. And when you're using software, you want to make sure it's agile. So you can really get your software to implement it fast and make sure it has the technology and capability to execute your mission. So when you look at all the things we talk about, how do we take a benefit, have that all benefit up front and realize all those savings up front and then flatten your curve? And when you look at that design to cost, which is driving your P-win, there's so many opportunities, but it starts with how do you go from a traditional build, aluminum, to composites to really bonded assemblies. And how do you get away from all the fasteners and all the different things that you install in the aircraft to make it a lot easier to put together less parts? And we'll talk a little bit about a couple of examples. So first, design to cost, and I love to look at this example. This is Boeing. When you look at Boeing, and you look at what they've done on the 777, when you look at they was drilling around 40 to 80,000 holes on this platform. And they built with robots, and actually one of my good friends, Bob from KUKA, at that point in time, now AIT was there and offered those type of technologies to be able to design for automation. And you can see with that capability, you're able to reduce some standard hour content as you drill an aircraft and making sure you drill those 40 to 60,000 holes without using a man. So that means you're going to get better producibility, you're going to have better quality, and you're also going to get it done without causing the fatigue to man, and you probably can get it done faster in most cases. But when you look at what they did on the 787, they went through and they actually came back and they did a lot of bonded composites. And when you look at what they've done, and they used with their supplier Spirit, and they build a nose of the aircraft, all that is composite, one spin all the way around the tube, being able to take the frames and put them in, and then stringers inside of the aircraft and have it bonded to the aircraft. But when you look at the fastener count, when you look at the 747, around 1 million fasteners. I share it with you, the 777, 40 to 80,000 fasteners, and they're down to less than 10,000 fasteners on the 787. So when you talk about 10,000 fasteners from just talk about 60,000 or 1 million, that's one hole that you don't have to drill every single time with a man or any equipment. One drill motor you don't have to buy, one cheesecloth, not one type of toolbox to put that drill motor in. All that is eliminated. So you reduce a lot of cost, and you reduce the ability to have one major configuration versus a number smaller configuration of parts. Now this takes off strain off your supply chain. Also bring a lot of the fabrication more in-house, and then also you can sub it out as they did with the 787 to one of their suppliers. So it changes the way you're thinking about it by doing one thing that I think that we lose sight of. It's not just about reducing just cost, it's reducing standard hour content of the product. When you reduce the standard hour content, that's going to allow you to reduce all other variability in your processes. And when you look at the savings, it goes under and benefits a number of different opportunities, from your labor, your costs, your all the other different opportunities that you see. Give you another example. When you look at the F-35 line in one of my facilities, we went and used automation. So we designed aircraft to be able to accept automation. And you can see, you know, drilling the number about 6,000 fasteners. You can see that we have a number of automations. So every time we increase rate, we increase automation to support it. And then we looked at some of our other innovations. And no, you can't tell what it is, and that's on purpose. But it is, when you look at bonded assemblies, and we did some, when you look at the data and the capabilities that we have here, 80% less fasteners using this technology and this capability that we would in traditional products. Less weight, of course, less cost. And when you look at the capabilities that we have, it drives a significant cost savings across the board that our customers are able to enjoy and also make us more competitive in our pursuits. And just like the first slide, we show that there are just significant savings across the board in a number of different labor, material, your tools, and your processes, and you avoid a lot of other different types of costs. And then the part that we don't put on here, but it's just equally as important, the risk. The risk of not worrying about fasteners, the risk of knowing about putting the wrong fastener into aircraft, the different things you do to manage those different types of capabilities, you're able to reduce those down significantly. Now, just to bring it up, just to make it a little more clear and for all of us, when you look at traditional design capability, and this is where, when you start doing the data, and this is based on some true products that we've used in the past, the bottom piece here you see is our standards. And this represents the standards is what does it take based on engineering standard to build an aircraft, a part of an aircraft here. And you look at the standards, you got a couple of things that you look at, the engineering standards, the complexity, and then personal fatigue and delay. So all three of those create the standard that it should cost to build, but you have all these other challenges, what we call elements of realization, part shortages, you know, walking back and forth to the toolboxes, making sure you have all the supplies and everything you need on time. So when you look at that, it drives up significant costs, and plus you put things in the wrong place when you first lay out a factory, so you have to change it around. So when you look at that, and then you change the concept to more of a design for automation. And when you change that design concept, you get to reduce a little bit, 5% of your standards, and you realize a significant amount, 14% of your total cost by reducing just a small amount of your standards. And that enable you to reduce what you call your manufacturing cost, total cost, because of your realization factors. So when I look at that, then I said, what if you just change the design and not use traditional design? And when you change the design concept, you go from 5% down to 21% reduction in standards because you don't have all the operations you have. You're able to see around 40% reduced costs just by changing the way you design the aircraft up front. And this is what you will realize going forward. And this is not just a chart. This is real data that we've used on multiple platforms to be able to achieve those objectives just by changing your design concept up front. And this is really, when you look at, this controls your top part, your elements of realization. So as long as you can reduce the standard, you reduce your element of realization, and then you start to save a lot of costs on your products. And that's where we like to focus our attention on, changing the paradigm from the way you design to give you better outcomes on the back end. And then when you look at the benefits of that and all the things you start to achieve, when you look at the different areas from here, you're eliminating fasteners, you got a bonded assembly, you're leveraging additive manufacturing, and then all the rework has changed, the planning, the part shortage, tooling, all the things that we see every day on our products, a lot of those things go away or get minimized based on using these types of concepts. So design the cost is really important, but when you design the cost, please make sure that it have to be producible. So if you have a design that's going to allow you to use bonded assemblies or any other type of fiber placement, if you don't use if you don't have a design to be producible, you're going to have a bigger problem. You got to make sure you can produce it. You don't want to be scrapping things one out of every four. So you have to make sure you enable all of that at one time. So now I'm kind of shifting the focus and shifting the discussion a little bit to the workplace. The workforce is completely different. Now, I'm not here to challenge, criticize, or to say that the employees today are different than the employees that are as old as I am, but it's a different mindset. Their goals, their needs, and their requirements are completely different. The 0 to 3 employees with 0 to 3 years are leaving faster in most companies than the ones that have been here for quite some time. One's with pension, one without a pension, creates a different environment. housing prices and all the other influences that happens around that. And then is the manufacturing in places in the United States considered that fun environment? Some people don't want to do manufacturing. Then there's others who love to do it. So when you look at the diminishing trade space in manufacturing, we had to continue to keep people engaged in that process. So we, in Northrop Grumman, we collaborate with local junior colleges or junior colleges, and we build normally a program to train people to build aircrafts. We give them our requirements, our specifications. They allow them to train anybody for any company to go to those same colleges, take a college course, and they train them how to build aircrafts. And when they finish, we hire them from there, and so do some of our competitors. And it's better to make that investment so you can see who's committed to the kind of work we do, and you start to see people in those classes that you get to test them. Are they really going to do well in your company and your industry? And I will be very honest with you, we see a great turnout. We continue to work with the colleges to modify the curriculum to make sure it reflects what we need and what our industry needs. But one thing that's really good about it is you get to really test drive the employees before you hire them, because they're students. And I will tell you, in most of the junior colleges, there's a standing line for over a year or so to get in those classes. To a point in one of my facilities in Palmdale, they created a satellite campus outside of the college to put on the airport so they can just have, 2 shifts going throughout the year, because I'm hiring that many people. So when you look at that capability, leveraging and working with academia, you enable them to be able to create some of the resources you need for your future work. And then, of course, you want to have the legacy folks, people who's been in business across the industry, and bring that capability inside as well. But this is a major challenge. And then, are they clearable? That's the first word I ask. Are you clear? Can you obtain a security clearance? And if I was to ask all of you who can obtain a security clearance, can you raise your hand? Okay, we're going to have applications go to each and every one of you so we can hire you before you leave. So when you really look at it, it's really important to us to get those experts that can do that. And then when you look at the bell curve, and it's really interesting, the people who are here in this industry, and I looked at some statistics not too long ago, in most of the A&D environment, when you start looking at upper leadership, that around 50% or more can retire now and within the next 5 years. And then when you look at the people coming in, it's not as many coming in as fast as the ones that can leave. So the attrition rates are starting to go up across the industry. So if that's happening, we got to figure out how to bridge that gap, which is doing some innovative things. Do you promote faster than you have in the past? Yes. Do you take more risks? Yes. Do you accept more failure? Can your company accept more failure? Are you willing to take more failure out there in your company? No. We do. We have to. There is no other way around it. You have to accept more failure. Because you're going to take risks, and you know they're getting promoted faster than you did. All the scars that many of us have on our back for all the 30-plus years that some of us worked in this industry, they're learning that for the first time on these new products. So with that being said, they're going to make some mistakes. You got to make sure you manage those mistakes that they make and don't make them as many and don't realize them. But you have to expect it, and you can't just fire them when they make a mistake, because that's the most expensive training you ever provided. So you have to change that mindset to be able to address that, and you have to take more risk going forward. And attrition is a major issue across the board. And then when you look at how competitive, attrition sometimes is really interesting word. So the attrition, now I'm going to talk about 2 elements of it. First attrition is, you leave me to go to my competitor, and then they give you more money, then I bring you back for more money. Then you take them back for more money. And next you know, my customer's paying more money for this product because this guy's paying us both. So how do you eliminate that? It's really a hard problem that we have to solve, because employees have the right to go to wherever they want to. And when you look at that challenge, it creates a significant issue across the board for all of us. And we need to really figure out that problem. And we all have competitive pay, but we want to make sure that we don't price ourselves out of the market and make it unattainable for our customers. But let's talk about another attrition that we don't even call attrition. We call it a good attrition. In our company, we call it, impact of movement. So when I'm growing thousands of people, I'm going to hire 55,000 people in our corporation in 5 years. So when I'm growing that effort, half of that is not just growth, it's changing, it's helping me because of attrition, because people can retire. So what do we do when you look at that and you say that, what other things are happening when you're growing and you have an attrition? You have promotions. So you got employees now that are promoting up from what they were doing to something else they're doing. Isn't that just like attrition? Isn't that going to have the same impact on the statement of work that you have to now backfill with another person? So you got a double hit. If you realize 10% of attrition and you got another 10% of movement, you just realize 20% of impact to your efficiency in manufacturing. And although it's good, growth for the employee, good that they filled another role, but that statement of work you were doing, going from manufacturing to industrial engineering to manufacturing engineering to go to quality to go to our flight test organization, all those different movements, it creates another dynamics that you have to manage both of those as the same type of attrition risk. A little bit different solution for each, but you have to manage both. And then I talked about the security clearances. And we worked with our government counterparts. We've actually had a bill signed. I had worked with our local senator who worked with the President of the United States, signed the Security Act 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and to help expedite the security clearance process. That was very helpful for us. But yet and still, you look at it, there's so much work out there that you need clearances, and there's different levels of clearances you have to obtain that it becomes very challenging to be able to manage that environment, but an area we've been focused on. And then when you look at the competition, I talked about that. Industry competition, good problem to have, but a big problem that we have to manage. And then when I look at the opportunities and things that we do, and I talked earlier about how we leverage and work with the partnership with the colleges, and we do different levels. We do with the high school, but we would like our manufacturing comes sometimes straight from high school. Then we have the junior colleges, and then we have strong collaboration across our corporation with interns, and we have other type of work that we have college hires that we get, and we bring them into our facilities. So we hire thousands of interns every year and college hires, and we bring them in because we feel that that's a great way to offset some of your challenges with your hiring process. And something we've learned to do, which I'll share to you for a very nominal fee, is we hire our interns and we give them a security clearance, put them in for a security clearance while they're still in college. So when they graduate college, they have a security clearance. And that allows us they can work on products when they get out of college. They can come straight to work for our corporation and go work on very good statement of work and have the security clearance necessary to execute that statement of work. Because sometimes we see security clearance taking a year, and it depends if it's a top secret, going up to almost 2 years. So when you look at that time frame, you need to be able to mitigate that. And what better way to do it while they're sitting in the classroom? Just make sure you tell them, don't do nothing stupid while you're in class. Okay, everything you do, you need to be very mindful of. And as I tell some of my kids, and this is not representing me, don't do some of the things that you guys did when you was younger. Okay. So, but I always like to really kind of go into what I call diversity and inclusion. And I want to this is a soundbite that I want to just offer to all of you. Really, we've seen our company grow significantly over the last several years. We've done very well. We won some major competitions. We continue to challenge ourselves. But we could not do it if it wasn't for our employees that we have in our company. And our employees, we feel that we have some of the best people that we could ask for working for our great corporation. But really, when you look at diversity, and there's two types of diversity. Diversity is what you see. You see your gender, you see your age, you see your race, you see all those. And things you don't see. What is your political interest? What is your education? What is your background? What other type of experiences you bring to the table? But I would be very clear with you. I've seen a number of companies that understand diversity, but they ignore the word inclusion. You have to have them both. Having a diverse company means nothing if you don't have an inclusive environment. So you have to have an environment where everyone, no matter orientation, sex, or different, or their race, and all the things they do. Because I've been in companies before, when I say where I used to work for, people get mad at me. They didn't want to hear that. Well, I bring capabilities from those other experiences. So that's a great diversity to have. So you have to create an environment where everyone's feel included. So that has helped us to leverage the capabilities that we have in our corporation and what made us significant as we are today. So we have a great company that do great things. And as I go through the rest of this pitch, it's really giving you a little soundbite. When you look what's behind me right now, we've won a significant number of recognition, around 4 or 5 this year alone, based on our leadership in manufacturing. Similarly, a quality plan of the year in my Palmdale facility. And you just look at a number of different awards, how we ranked in Diversity Inc., we ranked for millennials, just a number of great things. So when you're all sitting at home and you're thinking about, what do I really like doing? What is my passion? And your passion is working for Northrop Grumman. So So we really appreciate all of you applicants who are going to apply before you leave here to come work for our great company, because we can use all the experience. But if you don't have a security clearance, just stay in somebody else's line. But please, we need you, and we need this industry, but we do have to work it together. So now I'll open it up to questions that you may have of me.
Hello. Hi, Kevin. Misha Grigoriev, El Segundo, Mantech. You talked about competition, attrition, and shortages in that labor pool. So what are we doing to attract the high-skilled employees and retain them in our company?
You know, it's a great question. I think all of us have the same problem and the same, it's probably space of how we address it. And it's funny because we sometimes you get, I won't use the different company's name. One time they was in front of our facility with an ice cream truck trying to solicit our employees. True story, in Space Park, California. I said, what, you kidding, you got a billboard inside of your truck and you're right next to my employees trying to get them with ice cream? So, but there's all types of gimmicks. But I like to look at what is our mission? And we like to share our mission with our employees. As I say, two major missions that we have is, protecting our freedom and also advancing human discovery. And those things right now, that don't get your blood going. That's one thing that we offer. And you look at the innovative work and the ability to just stretch yourself, the career growth and opportunities that we offer, the different geographical locations, because we have work all over the country. So we market that. We don't have a problem with people going from one part of our corporation from the East Coast to the West Coast, our different functions. We encourage that behavior. And then we have tuition reimbursement. We have some of the same benefits, and if not better, are equal to some of our competitors. But we do also a value proposition as well. When you look at how we do it, and one of the reasons I show the things behind you is that the things that our values believe in with the diversity and inclusion, we don't care about some of the things that others care about. We want to make sure you're valued as a Northrop Grumman employee in our workplace. So when you look at that and the type of work we do and the fair compensation and pay and the environment we create, I think that it's very hard to resist not working for a great company like Northrop Grumman. And we don't have problem really hiring people. We do a great job getting people from different diverse backgrounds, different companies, and different walks of life that come into our company. And we also go outside of our just natural industry. We call the technology industry our industry. So we don't care if you're a Google, Apple, MIT graduate, a Cal State Long Beach. It doesn't make a difference where you are. We want to take advantage of all those capabilities from across the globe. So those are some of the things at a high level that we have done to make sure. Working with that, we try to figure out how do we keep people to stay? How do you change that dynamic, not focus on what you bring in? I really slow down what's going out. So we got to make sure most of us focus on the people coming in. What about the people who've been there for a while? How do we make them feel appreciated and they want to stay at the company? So when you have certain challenges, when you don't have pensions and things that we had in the past, you can't offer those types of tools. So now you got to focus on what's important to that person. And what I've learned, what motivates me is not what motivates the new person coming in or the person who may be leaving, because our life changes as we go through this maturity life cycle. When you get older, we look in our benefit package right now. Do we need to change and do elderly care within our benefit package? Does that make it more attractive for some of our employees? Not for the employee, for their parents or for their spouses or whatever. And maybe we're in that category too. I got to stop being in denial. But, and then you look at, the different types, given the menu selection, what type of benefits do you personally like? Not the menu that I like. So how do we change it where you got a drop-down menu, you can do different selection of what you want? Do you want reimbursement? I did a survey just yesterday. Don't need it anymore. As they told you earlier, I got too many degrees, I don't need it anymore. So therefore, I don't need that one. But you may offer me something else at a different cost, then now I can get more of life insurance or more of some elderly care. So now you give me that different opportunity. It helps me now attract a different crowd because it depends on what you want and how do you make it cater to me, the individual. So there's a number of different initiatives like that we're working on in our corporation. But great question, thank you.
I have one more question for you.
So thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for all the things that you're saying today. I'd like to know, I'm Karen Schultz from Walco Tool and Engineering. So we're a small contract manufacturer. And I'd like to know how all the things that you're talking about, a little company is actually incorporating and continuing to improve upon. How do we sell that value to Northrop Grumman as part of the price? So what I want to know is, are you speaking to your supply chain efforts to incorporate companies who are doing all the great things you're doing, but also impact our cost to you?
I didn't hear the last part, impact our costs.
Impact our cost to you.
I'm struggling with that last piece. You impact your cost to me. What do you mean?
Right. So our overhead is going to be much higher than the guy who's not investing in the training, not investing in the improvements, not
Okay, got it.
investing in the expansion to take on your new product lines.
Okay, now I understand the question. First, here today I have Vicki, who's our small business, is your small business, that helps us right here. We look for innovative, value-added suppliers. When I look at suppliers, and I hate using the word suppliers all the time. I look at all of you, my partners. But when you look at that, it's the value proposition. So sometimes your overhead may be more expensive, but what are you giving me for the value proposition out of that a higher overhead? So we look at all those different relevant, and what's your niche that I need? And what do you bring that someone else can't bring? So when you look at a company that we do business with, we want to look at those companies who understands our mission, understands our products and the desires that we have, but also how do you sell yourself to say this is what you're missing and this is how I can add you a significant value? Because the savings is not always in the direct cost, it is the savings that we get over the life cycle of a product build. And for example, if you can show me how I can have an engineering company reduce my own engineering staff requirements, that could be a good thing because I don't have to have a desk for them. I don't have to have computers and all these other things. So I may be able to absorb that overhead impact that you give me. Although it's probably not as high as ours, so it still may be a positive thing that you may have because of the things that we build. But there's always a value proposition that a smaller supplier can add that we can be attracted to. And then when you fall into our compliance requirement, being in the defense industry, 23% of my business needs to be small business. So if it's women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned, or one of those other categories, that gives me a value proposition in itself. So if you bring some kind of capability that fits one of those opportunities, that's a great opportunity. And let's take it one step further. We're looking at how do we use engineering abroad? And how can you reduce that cost where I don't have to send engineers to a different foreign country? How can I send your team there to have them stand up a capability that I can leverage and take advantage of? So there's multiple different avenues with a company like yours or others that can provide that level of opportunity to our company. Did I answer your question? All right, thank you.
In respect of time, this will be the last question.
Yeah, Mr. Mitchell, Dan Erb, Jones Metal Products. I was curious about your onboarding process for new suppliers. We've, in the past 5 years, have gotten into a lot of big OEMs, and some are good at it and some of them aren't. I was just curious if you've had any advances in that process of bringing new suppliers on, if that's been a focus.
That's a great question. And Vicki's been able to maintain her job for a number of years because she does a real good job at that. She brings in all the small business, no matter, she finds those niche suppliers. We do a very good job. And I tell you, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we have to say the word no because some suppliers' capability doesn't really align to ours. We look at your financial records. We look at your capability. We look at your history of performance. We really make sure that whoever we bring in is someone that can really add value to our corporation without a lot of risk. And then we're willing to take some risk, and we're willing to help our small business in certain areas to make sure they're successful. And there's many ways we have done that in the past. But really, it's about what are you bringing that we can take advantage of. And sometimes you do have to be a little more persistent because remember, if it's one of you coming to me, there's probably around 10 more behind you. So you got to make sure that you make yourself known. You go to these types of events, talk to the right people, and then show us what your capabilities are. And always see how can you get on our calendar, either virtually or in person, to show us what capability that you bring to the table. And one thing that many companies don't do well is tell me why you're better than the other person, other than you just telling me so. How do you prove that? You know, so how do you prove that you can bring me a capability that I can really sign up to and say it's going to bring me a competitive solution? So those are the things that I think we can offer to suppliers that are new trying to enter into our corporation. All right? Thank you.